By now, reports of a special dispensation request to grant Andrea Kimi Antonelli a super license before he turns 18 are kind of old news. But they do raise a lot of questions. The most obvious being, if the FIA is willing to entertain these kind of requests, what's the point of having an age limit in the first place? To which the answer really is just to make sure we don't see 15-year-olds being dumped into the highest tier of motorsport way before they're ready, just so a team principal can make sure they don't miss out on the next generational talent. Safety is important after all. And I have to ask, even though Antonelli has shown a lot of talent in the lower formulas, considering his hit and miss campaign so far this season in F2, is it really smart to consider bumping him up yet again? He's already skipped Formula 3 to push him straight into a Formula 1 seat with only half a season of F2 under his belt sounds like a terrible idea. And finally, is it Williams who made the request? And could he really be in a car by the time Imola rolls around in a week and a half? James Vowell's non-committal answers really do seem to imply that yes, it was Williams who made the request. Toto Wolff has been clear in his statement that it's not Mercedes, and the likelihood it's one of the other Mercedes customer teams is pretty much close to nil. And after all, Toto's desperation to get all of this moving mostly stems from him still being a little bit sore about missing out on Max all of those years ago. So is Williams seriously considering signing Antonelli and ditching Logan Sargeant now that his home Grand Prix is out of the way? Before I answer that, let's dig into the rules. Actually, no, wait. Before I answer that, please, could you click the like button and maybe consider subscribing? It really does help me out. The more people that subscribe to me, the more encouraged I am to make more videos, and chances are the more likely it is I'll be able to produce a higher quantity of videos. So please do go and click those buttons if you feel so inclined. Obviously, if you don't, then don't, because that's cool. You do you. But yeah. Whatever. It is so awkward. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to ask for things. So let's look at the rules about what is required to be eligible for a super license and how many of them Antonelli already meets. Apart from passing the mandated Q&A session, applicants need to have at least 40 super license points, which is a big tick. Kimi's accumulated enough points through his Formula 4 and Formula Regional campaigns. He also needs to have completed at least 80% of 2 approved single-seater championships. So a tick to that too. He needs to have done 300 kilometres in representative Formula 1 machinery consistently and at racing speeds over a period of no more than 2 days and within 180 days of the licence application, which I think it's safe to say Antonelli has now done. He also needs to hold a Grade A competition licence, and that's a little bit more unclear. I would be surprised if it hasn't been handled already, considering he needs to have at least a minimum Grade B licence to race in F2, but it's unclear if he gets a pass on this. Then we come to the big ones. For Antonelli, anyway. To hold a super licence, a driver needs to be both 18 at the time of their first competition, as well as hold a valid driver's licence. Now, considering the driving age in Italy is 18, that means Kimi falls down on both of these requirements, which, in all fairness, are the only sticking points. So what does this all mean? Well, according to the FIA, accepting any dispensation application for Antonelli's super license may require a rule change. Now, whether that's temporary and largely about paperwork, or something more permanent, they haven't been clear about. But it does show this whole process isn't something that is going to be taken lightly. Not that anyone really was expecting it to be. But why push for everything so early? Why not just wait until August? What's the rush? Well, if you look at the bigger picture, there could be an interesting play here. Kimi Antonelli turns 18 in the middle of the Dutch Grand Prix weekend. Now, I'm sure there's nothing that his potential new team would like more than to have him debut the following weekend at Monza. But dropping him straight into the current Williams car with no FP1 sessions isn't exactly setting him up for success. What I think is happening here is that Williams, allegedly, is shooting for a full super license in the hopes that Antonelli is granted a free practice-only license instead. In fact, I think they might not have actually applied for a full super license at all. The media coverage on this has mostly used the term super license without qualifying exactly what kind of super license this is. And I've been unable to find a transcript of the FIA statement this came from to find further clarity. Just like for the full licence, a practice-only one requires the driver is 18 and has a driver's licence for the road. But I feel like the FIA would be more likely to provide leeway or consider a rule change for a driver to get out in some FP1 sessions than they would to go back on a rule that was implemented after Toro Rosso announced Max Verstappen for the 2015 season. Getting Antonelli into the car for some free practice sessions makes a whole lot of sense. If Toto is wanting to evaluate his suitability for the 2025 Mercedes seat, then getting him in the Williams this year is a bit of a no-brainer. But I don't think James Vowles will be willing to drop him straight in the car the moment he's allowed without first seeing how he handles himself out there in the melee. And if Antonelli is granted a practice-only licence, giving him a couple of sessions during weekends where he's already present for F2, Imola and Monaco perhaps, are two tough circuits that would demonstrate his ability, well, that would go a long way to evaluating whether or not he's ready to be double fast-tracked, or if he needs another season in F2 to hone his skills. Then, the only thing standing between Antonelli and a debut at his home race at Monza is himself. All he has to do, under a bit of time pressure, as in a couple of days, is pass his driving test and complete the super license question and answer session. That would then give Toto 9 race weekends to decide whether or not he wants to pull the trigger and stick Antonelli in the Mercedes next year. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he and Vowles have an agreement that if Toto fails to tempt Max over to the dark side and Antonelli needs a little bit of further development, then Alex will go to Mercedes on loan for a year, aiming for a potential swap back for 2026, should he decide to stick around and grow for a couple more years. James Vowles may have talked a bit about how important it is to have the stability coming into the new regulations, but if he's offered a big discount on his power units in exchange for Alex's services, then that would be a pretty darn tempting offer for a team that's looking to continue to improve its facilities and hire experienced talent. With PUs running in the region of 10 million euros, this could potentially mean a big chunk of change from the cost cap to move into other parts of business. Whatever the outcome, there's way too much smoke floating around here for something not to be on fire. And I'd be very, very surprised if Logan Sargeant is still in his seat come the end of the season.